Happy Friday, by the way, everyone.
Yeah,
you too.
Thank God.
Thank God.
Oh my God, sorry. I thought it was.
You said that out loud, Maureen.
No, I hear you. I'm right there with you.
We'll
Go
get
ahead,
started.
Corinne.
Oh yeah, hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone. This is our Friday morning chalk talk. We were just expressing our gratitude that for Friday. I'm Corinne Kramer. I'm a palliative care social worker here in St. Luke's in Milwaukee. Today, I will be introducing Lori Jaswiak, who is a thoracic transplant social worker, also here in at St. Luke's in Milwaukee. I had a chance to talk with Lori a little bit. She grew up on a farm. She loves to garden, and she loves to birdwatch. Also, she has had a diverse background in social work. She has over 20 years of social work experience, where she has some director experience and also a background in home health and hospice. So I saw Lori in the halls, and I'm interested in what she does. I know there's a palliative care component absolutely to her transplant social work role. So I asked her to please come and present. So during this talk, she will present for about 20 minutes. So please hold questions and comments until the end. Then we will go ahead and have conversation. Feel free to type your questions in the chat box or just speak out loud. So right now I will have Lori present on palliative care in the thoracic transplant social work role.
Well, good morning. Thank you so much for having me this morning and allowing me to talk with all of you about my role in transplant and in my collaboration with palliative care. First, I plan to talk a little bit about my role as a thoracic transplant social worker, and then how I'm involved in coordination with palliative care. And then at the end, I hope to provide a couple case examples that we can discuss. So just a little bit of an icebreaker, little social work humor. I don't know if any of you, how many of you know how many social workers it takes to change a light bulb? None? The light bulb has to want to change.
Oh, God.
It's an oldie but a goodie.
Good one.
Our psychologist says it's about psychology, but I say it's about social work. So on the transplant team, social work is one part, one discipline on a bigger multidisciplinary team. I work with surgeons, physicians, pharmacy, transplant coordinators, palliative care, nursing, psychology, dietitians, organ procurement. So we're all seeing the same patients and families and following them throughout the whole continuum of transplant. And so social work is really following the patient and family throughout this entire transplant process. And that really means from the time of evaluation, pre-transplant, during the time of transplant, and to the end of life. So it's quite a long period of time. Sometimes that could be 10 to 20 years post-transplant that the team has followed this patient and family. So that's quite unique in the transplant role. Transplant social workers are always available to all transplant patients in the outpatient clinic on an ongoing basis. So pre-transplant, As a social worker, I'm completing screens, which really means psychosocial assessments of the patient and family system to see if they might be a candidate for a transplant or an LVAD evaluation. And then also I'm seeing patients and families during the evaluation process and completing that bigger psychosocial evaluation. I see patients for annual reviews when they are listed for a heart transplant and they're on the waiting list. They come into our outpatient clinic once a year and to see all the disciplines, and we update their psychosocial status for any changes that may have occurred throughout the year. I present my findings of our evaluations at patient selection committee and discuss patient needs. I'm working with patients and families on developing their 24-hour plan, which is really a plan of focusing on the care that they may need after a transplant. So I'm also providing community resource coordination. I see patients both in an inpatient basis and an outpatient basis. I'm meeting with patients pre, peri, post-transplant, assess confirming supports, coping, compliance. I work with discharge planning, patients from the hospital. We're following up with those patients as an outpatient. For our patients with an LVAD, I assist in coordinating the ordering of their LVAD dressing supplies and the care or education that they may need post-LVAD placements. And some of our patients with LVADs need to be placed in a skilled nursing facility, and helping coordinate the education the skilled nursing facility may need and the coordination of that patient being admitted to that facility. Also facilitating a transplant support group. Although this has been on hold now for a year since the COVID outbreak, we haven't been able to meet in person. Hopefully we'll be able to start this up again soon as everything opens up. But just moving on, so in coordination with palliative care, we're both seeing the patient and families through the continuum of the transplant process. So we're seeing and talking with the same patients and families about what they're going through, the current disease or illness or situation that or inpatient stay that they're experiencing right at that moment. So it just makes sense that we're coordinating our care and services, and that we're working together with those towards the same outcomes. As a social worker, I may have knowledge of the family dynamics or things that may be going on, and palliative care has a significant impact on the discharge plan and the goals of care, which is needed to develop that discharge plan. And we're both providing support. So just in coordination of the roles, palliative is establishing goals of care, talking about code status, leading family meetings, providing disease-specific education. The social worker is working on discharge planning, completion of advanced directives, transportation, insurance coverage, or assisting with completing leave applications, helping to organize the family meetings. And I find that there's a number of opportunities for me to refer to palliative care, to advocate for a palliative care consult throughout the whole continuum of transplant. And definitely palliative is involved right at the time of evaluation, before transplant, and then during a change of condition, when the patient's condition is declining, working with when the patient's goals of care change over time, with recurrent hospitalizations, when goals of care are needed for discharge planning, and understand when families and patients have a lack of understanding of their diagnosis, and when there's difficulty coping or compliance concerns. So moving on to a case example. This is a completely fictitious example. This is not a real situation, but I think it kind of outlines a story, a very familiar story of some of the things that we may be working with in the within the transplant team and within the transplant continuum. So I'm interested to hear what you think and get your thoughts or ideas.
This is one where I would make sure that the family all gets on the same page. You know, if the patient wants to die just because she doesn't want to go to a nursing home, then, you know, get to the crux of what the real issues are. If it's they don't have enough care at home, figure out what we can do to assist all the family members as well as the patient.
Hey, Lori, it's Lindsay. I feel like this is kind of cheating since I work with you every day, but I think it would be really important to spell out exactly what the complications are and what the limitations to placement at a nursing facility would be. That, you know, inotropes really complicate that, and so does an LVAD, and what the complications of remaining at home would be. So I think spelling out exactly what the issues are one at a time, and as you noted, like this may be the first in a series of several meetings because there's a lot to tackle here.
I think, you know, I tried to highlight in the example that how difficult it is coping through these parts of the illness. It affects the whole family. The spouse is trying to manage a number of different caregiving issues and also is worried about finances behind the scenes. A daughter, she has her own family. The patient has, you know, started with the illness of heart failure and is reaching out for advanced heart failure options. But sometimes, you know, patients don't make it to a heart transplant. Many complications can occur. And the patient going through all of those recurrent hospitalizations and illnesses, and how it's difficult to cope with all of those things and determine, do I want to, you know, the question the patient may be asking is, do I want to continue with this? So definitely, Lindsay, you're right, kind of sorting out all of those, what the patient's goals are with, and helping the family cope through the situation.
I think too, pointing out that a lot of these things this patient has going on are really advanced measures that are quite complicated. So if family is unable to do all of this at home, it is not a result of failure on their part, but really just a matter of speaking to how complicated this case actually is. I think validating that is a big important step in the patient and the family's coping of this process.
So I have a question. Do you think finances is the number one problem here that is kind of, you know, coming as is a hindrance to keep on going between what patient really wants? She wants to live and, you know, be with her family versus, okay, now finances are definitely a major issue.
I think the clear answer would be, yeah, it's related to finance. If she had unlimited funds, she could stay at home with a caregiver, and that would take the pressure off the husband. They'd all want her home. So, you know, if she had unlimited funds, she probably wouldn't have some of the issues she's having.
Well, there's definitely be less stress on the husband for sure. And he may be coping in a different way with less stress in this situation.
if this case is going on during COVID, I always get leery about families who are all alone in the hospital, having a couple of really terrible days, getting frustrated, not having any support or anybody to lean on to make a decision that is so big as to essentially lead to end of life, trying to slow these things down, trying to make sure that these are not decisions out of frustration, trying to make sure families involved and as supportive as it possibly can be, sort of slowing things down a little bit.
That's a really good point in an acute care hospital where things go pretty fast sometimes, and there's a lot of pressure to provide intervention and to get to the next step or to find those answers. I think that's a great point. So some of these family meetings can be pretty overwhelming. There's a lot going on, a lot to talk about. Many times the family meetings are just one step and we have to have several conversations over sometimes many days or weeks.
I have a comment, just talking with you earlier and even working in palliative care with patients in general. But a comment you made was, things can go really fast or really slow. You can meet someone and know them for 10 years and know them for throughout their whole continuum. Or you could meet someone and things could move in a different direction in a few days. So I thought that was interesting, just per our conversations, how the trajectory, it can play out at different paces.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think in some ways it's very helpful to know a patient and family well and know what their thoughts and feelings and what they're dealing with. But then, the illness does still play out at its own pace over time. I always kind of explain to patients that, this is a roller coaster. The patients are on a roller coaster and there's lots of ups and downs and twists and turns and challenges. And as the transplant team, we are on that roller coaster with them. We are going through that ride with them and trying to help them manage or cope with or make decisions along the way. So.
Oh, how do you guys feel about anticipating what this meeting with the transplant team is going to be like? I know everybody's busy in the hospital and transplant surgeons are just like everybody else, but maybe there's an opportunity for us to have a pre-meeting with the family to get a sense of values and goals that are going to take a while to get to, or maybe it's a post-meeting with the family after the transplant does their part. But I worry about the quality of a meeting if it's going to have to finish with everybody in the room at that one time and the confines that gives us.
I don't know how everyone feels, but I experience sometimes these family meetings can be very helpful, that everyone is in one place and all of the parties are getting the same information and hearing those things. But also it can be very overwhelming to the patient and family that all of this is being talked about all at once, and it seems like it's going very quickly and don't have time to process it, or and it could seem pressured. Or I've had family members say, like, everybody came into my room and they were all staring at me, and I don't like that, and I couldn't even think about what I wanted. But yet the transplant physician may feel like, no, this is a meeting we need to have. We need to have the family here. We need to talk about something. At the same time, sometimes subjects are overlooked by patients or families, that they they won't talk about them, or they're silent or in denial. And so without a lot of a situation that kind of puts them in that position of we do need to have these discussions, they may not ever have those discussions.
Right. It seems to me, this is Patrick over in St. Paul, that this woman took on the LVAD as part of a VTT. That was her goal. And it sounds like now, medically, that goal may not be physically possible, perhaps forever, or certainly for some period of time if she's just debilitated and she's now status 7, I guess, on the transplant list. So some kind of conversation with her about medically, your condition has changed, and that is shifting potentially what the goal of this device is, would be, like Marty said, really important, because she may not have wanted a VTD. And or, you know, as a destination LVAD, and all that implies and means for her. So I guess, you know, I get Rose or Lindsay or some really great palliative care person to have that kind of sensitive conversation about what that would look like and could mean for her, because that might not have ever been her goal. And this may be a way that they're trying to express some of that, although the family wants her to keep fighting.
That's a good point. So the next case example, what are your thoughts?
You know, this is what I want to share is unrelated to your case, but I would say that, man, we are so lucky that on our team we have Corinne, that we have a palliative care social worker. I know that not everybody has a social worker, and I think the reason why I love having a social worker on our team is it's like having another set of eyes, but looking through a different lens. Yeah, they are palliative care trained as well, but I think you guys have a different skill set, and it adds a tremendous amount of value. And I didn't realize that value was as much as it was. I think just on Monday, Palamed had a little blog out that was looking at some of the literature that recently came out on the value of social work and palliative care. So I recommend you guys check it out.
Thanks, Marty.
Well, yeah.
Bye-bye.
Hey, this is Rose. There's a bunch of us in the office, but you know, Lori and myself and Lindsay work together very closely, and I think there's a lot of wonderful perspective that social work brings, and then additionally, so amazingly good at logistics and how those logistics impact the family, because that's a major thing that I don't think the medical team really considers. You know, what are their financial burdens? What are their transportation burdens? And those logistical things that really do impact what happens to this person when they get home with all of these very intricate interventions. And what does that look like? So, I mean, it's really invaluable to the transplant team, and as well to, you know, us as palliative care providers, because it is about quality of life. So Lori, you know, we love you.
It's been great working with all of you so closely, and I really enjoy, you know, the palliative care perspective. And it's just some of these family and patient situations are so challenging. They're so complicated. There's so many different things going on. I feel like it takes all of us to figure this out over many days and weeks. Sometimes the answers are not easy. That's what I kind of tried to highlight in these two case examples, is the multitude of concern and issues, and each of our roles impact that, and it takes a whole team to work on that and to make change over time. So I really definitely appreciate all of you and working with you, and thank you so much for letting me talk with you this morning as well.
It takes a village, right? The parallels of taking care of patience in raising kids and child development are uncanny.
If
Thank
not,
you, Lori.
have a great weekend, everybody.
Yep, happy Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
All right, toodles,
Bye.
guys. Bye.
Bye.